Inequalities and their graphs. And now today's math joke. What do you get when you add 2 apples and 3 apples? A high school math problem. Today's lesson is inequalities and their graphs. We're going to be graphing inequalities and writing inequalities. Our Indiana Academic Standard is 8.3.1. The first vocabulary word is inequality. An inequality is a mathematical sentence that contains greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, or not equal. A solution of an inequality is any number that makes an inequality true. Pause the video if you need more time to finish up the notes. Please copy down these important directions. For less than or greater than, use an open circle when you graph the inequality. For less than, equal to, or greater than equal to, use a closed circle when you graph the inequality. If it is less than or equal to, shade all the numbers to the left. If it is greater than or greater than equal to, shade all the numbers to the right. This probably doesn't make any sense to you right now, but after we graph a few, I think it'll start to make sense. Let's try example A. X is greater than -2. Since it's just greater than and not equal to, we're going to put an open circle at -2. Then we're going to graph the solution to the right-hand side of that. That means we're going to draw a line over on top of the number line to the right of -2. So this is what your graph will look like. You should have an arrow at the end of your graph because if x is greater than -2, then that means any number that is bigger than -2 would make this inequality true. So it's very, very important that you have the arrow at the end. When we do the homework on this, you can actually be creative, and if you want to use colored pencils when you're drawing your graphs, that's fine with me. For example B, W is greater than or equal to -5. Because W can actually equal -5, we use a closed circle at -5. And since it's greater than, we're going to shade to the right. We're going to draw our arrow to the right, right on top of the number line. So your graph would look like this.
Pause the video.
If you need more time.
If you need more time.
You don't have to rewrite these rules because you've already written them once, but I wanted them to be on the screen as I talked about what we're doing with these problems. For example C, we have K is less than or equal to 4. Since it's less than equal to, we're going to use a closed circle at 4. But since K is less than 4, we're going to draw our arrow to the left because that would be all the numbers smaller than 4. So your graph will look like this. For sample D, Y is less than 6. Since it's just less than and it's not equal to, we're going to put an open circle at 6. Because Y is less than it, we will draw our arrow to the left. So your graph will look like this. Pause the video if you need more time to finish up the notes. Don't forget, you need to write a question down as you're taking notes so that we can answer it in class tomorrow. For example number 2, we're going to write the inequality shown for each graph. So look at graph A. We'll use the variable A just because it's graph A. You could use any variable. That's not really important. So we start off by writing the letter A. Then we look at the circle. Is the circle open or closed? It's closed, so we know it's going to be equal to, so we draw a little line. Now we have to figure out if A is less than or greater than the dot. We'll look at where it's graphed. It's graphed to the right. Those numbers are all bigger than the dot, where the dot number is. So we're going to use a greater than symbol. So A right now is greater than or equal to, and we need to fill in the number. Well, that dot is at -3. So A is greater than or equal to -3. Now let's look at example B. This time we'll use the variable B. So we start with the variable B. Look at your dot. Is it open or closed? It's open, so we're not going to put that equal sign symbol at the bottom of the inequality. We have to determine, is the variable, is it bigger than or smaller than the dot? Well, it's all the numbers to the left. All those numbers would be smaller than or less than. So right now we have B is less than, and we need to locate the number. The dot is at 3, so that means B is less than 3.
Pause the video.
If you need more time.
If you need more time.
Now let's take a look at a story problem. Food can be labeled very low sodium only if it meets the requirements established by the federal government. Use this table to write an inequality for this requirement. Let's take a look at the information in the table. Sodium-free food has less than 5 milligrams per serving. Very low sodium food has less than 35 milligrams per serving. Low sodium food has at most 140 milligrams per serving. So a serving of very low sodium has at most 35 milligrams of sodium. We're going to let V equal the number of milligrams of sodium in a serving of very low sodium food. We can begin by filling in the things that we know. We're going to let a serving of very low sodium be the variable, so that will be V. We know that the milligrams of sodium are 35, so we can fill that in. We just have to figure out what it really means if it's at most. So think about this. If it's at most, it could equal 35, so we can have our line underneath it. Now we have to think, if something could be at most 35, that means it couldn't be more than 35. So this would have to be a less than or equal to for the sentence to work. So V is less than or equal to 35. Pause the video if you need more time to finish up the notes. 1A is Z is less than -2. Since we have just a less than, we're going to put in an open circle. We're going to also have to put numbers on our number line. So we have our numbers on our number line. We need an open circle at -2. Then we have to ask ourselves, is the symbol telling us that it's more than or less than -2? It's less than, so our arrow is going to go to the left. Start by putting numbers on the number line. Then locate the variable. In this case, since the variable's on the right, we have to read this problem backwards. Start with the variable t. Read the problem backwards. T is less than 4. So we're going to have an open circle at 4, and since t is less than that, we're going to do an arrow to the left. For example C, start by filling in the number line with numbers. Then take a look at the problem. A is greater than or equal to -5. Since it's greater than or equal to, we're going to use a closed circle. We're going to place that at -5. Then we think about the problem. A is greater than -5. So we're going to draw our arrow to the right because those are the numbers that are greater than -5. Now we're ready for example D. 2 is greater than or equal to C. We start by putting in the number line, and then we have to locate the variable in the inequality. And we're going to read the problem backwards. When you read it backwards, C is less than or equal to 2. So we're going to put a closed circle at 2. Then we're going to, since C is less than or equal to, close circle at 2, and we're going to go to the left because C is less than 2.
Pause the video.
If you need more time.
If you need more time.
For sample 2, we need to choose a variable to use for our inequality. Let's just use x. So we take a look at it. We know 3 is going to be the number after the symbol because that's where the dot is. Now we have to decide, is the dot going to have a line underneath it or not? Does the symbol have a line underneath it? It does, because it can equal 3. It's a closed dot. And since the arrow's going to the right and it's looking at all the numbers that are bigger than 3, x is greater than or equal to 3. Number 3. Use a table from example 3. A certain food is labeled sodium-free. Write an inequality for n, the number of milligrams of sodium, in a serving of this sodium-free food. I'm going to put the table on here so that we can look at it at the same time of solving the problem. If a food is sodium-free, it has less than 5 milligrams a serving. That's going to be fairly easy to write as an inequality. We're going to use n for the number of milligrams of sodium. If it's less than 5 milligrams, simply put a less than symbol and the number 5. So n is less than 5. Pause the video if you need more time to finish up the notes. Don't forget, you need to write a question down as you're taking notes so that we can answer it in class tomorrow.